every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. So welcome to the John Schultz podcast. We have a great guest today. Everyone's going to know him, but I'm going to introduce him anyway because that's what I do. Mr. Lee Cooperman, welcome. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, John. Thank you.
Right. So Lee was at Goldman Sachs for 22 years, investment research, co-chair of investment committee for that. Spent a lot of time there. And then in 1991, he founded Omega Advisors, which also managed money for other people till 2018. And then in 2018, he said, enough is enough. And he pulled all the money that he's made in his life and gave the rest back. And he has a mega family office, which obviously is still doing really well. So we're going to learn about Lee today. So the first question I have is, what do you think attributed to your success? Because you got so much of it. And you've had so many years doing it. What do you think some of the core principles are for that?
I would say three things that I would respond to. One is hard work and luck, which doesn't require much explanation. And the third is intuition. And so the intuition requires some explanation. So I give two examples of intuition when I'm asked that question. The first example of intuition is back in the mid-'60s, if you finished your major and minor in college in 3 years, you were allowed to count your first year of medical or dental school towards your fourth year of college and get a separate degree. So in the summer of 1963, I went to the University of Pennsylvania and I took physical chemistry, which finished off my major. And I enrolled in the University of Pennsylvania School of Dentistry in August of 1963. And after 8 days, I started to wonder if I was pushing myself in a direction that was fully committed. You know, it's easy to shake that off now when you hear the words. It was very traumatic. I paid room and board for a year. I paid tuition for a year. My dad, may rest in peace, was walking around saying, my son, a dentist. I had to go to the dean of the dental school to explain to him I wanted to go back to undergraduate school to finish off my fourth year unencumbered by any commitment. He was very nasty about the whole thing. You make your decision up in 8 days. I'm not making a decision. I basically want to reflect on it for the next year and make sure I'm fully committed. I don't want to go to dental school for 3 or 4 years and find out at the end of the day I didn't want to be a dentist. The only guy that understood the trauma I was going through was Glenn T. Nygren, who was the dean of Hunter College, my undergraduate school, part of the City University, and he had to approve my matriculating back into school. And he said, very heroic decision, of course you can come back. So when I went back, I had all electives available. I took 10 courses in economics, got 10 A's. I found out what interested me, and I never looked back. So I never went back to dental school. So first example of intuition was making a decision. I know over the years, many people, get engaged, get married, and their wedding is maybe a couple of weeks off. They're starting having second questions. And they say, well, the invitations are out. We can't back out. And they wind up getting divorced a year later. So I made a heroic decision. It worked out to my benefit. Many, many years later, I give lectures at college campuses and I meet with students. I tell them the only way to be successful is to do what you love and love what you do. So I've never looked at what I did as hard work. I enjoyed what I did and doing. My second example of intuition, I'm very, very anal. You told me to dial in at 3:55. I dialed in at 3:55. Okay. And so one of the few times in my life where I passed a deadline without acting was when I got a job offer from Goldman Sachs in 1966. I don't want this to sound self-serving, but it was a very attractive package when I was at business school. I had straight A's. I had the Wall Street Journal Student Achievement Award. I was a member of Beta Gamma Sigma, which was the Wall Street, the financial arm of Beta Gamma, Phi Beta Kappa. I had a 6-month-old child. I knew what I wanted, and I was dead broke. and I had 16 job offers in 1966, and 4 of them were superior to Goldman's financially. And I passed the deadline for acting on the offer, and the guy who made me the offer, Bob Danforth, who's now deceased, calls me up and he says, "Lee, we disappointed we haven't heard from you. What can we say?" I say, "Bob, I like everybody I met at Goldman. I'm dead broke. I have a student loan to repay. I have a 6-month-old child, but I like everybody I met, and I have 4 offers for more money." The offer was for $12,500 a year. And I said to him, I was very familiar with the compound interest tables. I asked him, "I make $25,000 a year in 5 years, which was equivalent to 15% compound." And he said, "If you work hard and keep your nose clean, I think you can do it." I said, "Okay, I'll take the job." I went to Goldman for less money. A lot of people wouldn't do that, but that was the right decision because Goldman emerged as one of the few firms that didn't change their name over 150 years. And when I joined the firm, they were maybe making $5 million a year. The year I was admitted to the partnership, 9 years later, in 1976, the firm earned $40 million. And the year I retired after being a partner for 14 years, the firm made $1.9 billion. And I was there for that whole run from 40 million to 1.9 billion.
It's amazing.
Hard work, luck, and intuition. Hard work.
Yeah, and I get that, but because you've been doing it so long, and I know a lot of the younger people will want to hear this, right? You were investment research. It's numbers. You said you're anal. I mean, like, so you're constantly looking for data and why, and you're like you said, obviously you're always on time, but you're always looking for the right answer. How do you balance intuition with data?
Well, it's part of the investment process. I always point to Ben Graham, who wrote the book in 1954 called The Intelligent Investor. And he said managements are evaluated twice in the investment decision-making process. Once through the numbers, because return on equity, growth rate, industry position, profit margins are a function of the quality of management. And then secondly, you evaluate management in a face-to-face discussion. Try to figure out whether they're bullshitting you or telling you the truth. So there's a certain amount, in Yiddish they call it seichel. You have to have a certain amount of common sense. Seichel is common sense.
Right, because you can get lost in it otherwise. And I think there's no exact answer. Like the theme of everyone I've had on this podcast is everyone had to use their intuition. Even if it was wrong, they knew what they didn't want to do the next time. So I agree with you.
Yeah, mistakes, that's all.
Totally. So your family, I mean, you grew up in the South Bronx. How would your parents describe you? Because I also see a theme from people of like how what they learned from their parents. Some things stuck with them over the years. What would you say they would say about you, and what were some of the things that you felt have stuck with you your whole life and have helped you in your life and career?
Well, I would say my mother was a typical housewife, not too dominant in my life. My father was an extremely hard worker, a very generous man within his own means. My father came to America at the age of 12 from Warsaw, Poland, as a plumber's apprentice. He actually died carrying a sink up a 4-story tenement, doing a favor for a friend he shouldn't have been doing because he had a heart problem. That's why he was retired, and he had a heart attack carrying the sink up a 4-story tenement in Florida and died. So what I learned from my dad is hard work and generosity and good nature.
And I obviously that kept with you your whole career, right? I mean, to me, business, you sort of have to have a win-win, even though, it's otherwise the deal doesn't go through. But
well, you have to have a certain philosophy, and like I said, when something sounds too good to be true, the odds are it's not true. Do I have an investment today in a company that fits that description? The investment seems so fabulous that there's something wrong with it.
So from your early days at Goldman Sachs, obviously to launching Omega, you've had tremendous success. What do you consider the most defining moments and why you did that? Like obviously you were loyal to the firm. You spent there a long time. What made you want to make a change? And you obviously did. So.
Well, it's a long story, but I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
You had a little influence I had at Goldman. For 10 years, I was telling Goldman they're making a big mistake by not going into asset management. I was a man ahead of my time. And for 10 years, they told me, "Lee, you don't understand. Goldman is a major broker to the institutions, And we believe brokers do brokerage and money managers do money management. Don't compete with your customer. I said, wake up and smell the roses. Merrill Lynch Asset Management, Webster, which is a division of Kenneth Peabody, CSFB Asset Management, and everybody's getting into the business. The one firm that was not in the business was their arch trading rival, Salomon Brothers. And then one day, Salomon announced that Bob Salomon Jr., my contemporary, was leaving the research department to start Salomon Brothers Asset Management. And Bob Rubin and Steve Friedman, who were then co-heads of the firm, called me and said, look, we made a mistake. Are you willing to leave research to start an asset management business? Now, again, this is not self-serving, but I had climbed the mountain when I took over Goldman Research in 1972 as a manager of the department. We were unranked in research. And when I was in 1990, I guess, when I left, we were number one in financial world, number one in II, number one in Greenwich Research. And I also was the firm's portfolio strategist. So I said I had a role as a orchestra leader in running the department. And I also was a soloist in terms of being a portfolio strategist. And so being number one in both categories, I was ready for a new challenge. And I say with a big smile on my face, I made a mistake and said yes. The reason I made a mistake is Goldman's a terrific firm, and they understood assets under management times fee equal revenue. I was more interested in the performance of those assets, less interested in gathering a lot of assets. So after a year, I saw Goldman wanted to be on the road all the time, raising new money, and I wanted to manage the money to find good stocks. So I decided to retire. And when I decided to retire, I told the firm, I believe in noblesse oblige. I told the firm that basically, if they say my going into the hedge fund business was a violation of non-compete, I wouldn't do it. And they were very realistic. They said, listen, we don't want to go into that business. So how can we say you're violating your non-compete? We hope that you would use Goldman as your prime broker. I said, I would not do anything but that. And then I agreed to be a consultant to Goldman for the 1 year.
That's amazing how things change, right? But you were ahead of your time. And it just seems also like and conviction, I guess, is everything too, besides all the research, intuition, then you have to have real conviction on it. And I know you're like very into education, and you feel that's part of, how you can create success.
Well, I work very hard and I give away all the money. I've taken 2 giving pledges, one with Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, the other one with a guy by the name of Mike Levin that's oriented towards Jewish causes. So I've agreed to give Mike Levin half my net worth, and I'm giving Warren Buffett and Bill Gates the other half. So I'm giving away 250s or 100%. So I'm working for charity, and 2 of my family's interests are education, particularly helping the inner city kids even up the odds and give them a chance to.
I know you do that in Newark, right? Which we have holdings in Newark. We love Newark with the parks. I guess you're rebuilding.
Actually, the one in education I gave. This is an interesting story. I created something called Cooperman College Scholars. So if you live in Essex County, New Jersey, principally Newark, you have a show the initiative and enroll in a free 3-week pre-college program designed by Franklin and Marshall, and you're academically qualified. I'm big on not giving people fish, but teaching them how to, fish. So I gave $25 million, and I told them when I gave them the $25 million, I say, I know the statistics. I've worked too hard for this money. The statistics when I gave them the first $25 million is 35% of Newark high school kids went to college, only 5% graduated. I'm not spending this kind of money for a 5% graduation rate. So 6 years later, my first cohort graduated, and we had a 73% graduation rate. So I gave them a second $25 million. And I'm going to name them in my will as a, what do you call it? I'm losing the side of the word, but I'll come back to it.
Come back to it.
We now have a $50 million fund that funds 1,000 kids going to college in Newark. And I give a large amount of money to St. Barnabas Medical System. They dropped the Saint for a Jew, so it's now called Cooperman Barnabas. I gave money down here in Boca Regional. So, education and healthcare are 2 of my interests. And it's designed to help people achieve what I've achieved.
What's more fun, giving it away or making it?
Good question. I enjoy both. You know, I tell the young kids the only way to be successful is to love what you do and do what you love. So I enjoyed what I'm doing. I like making money for two reasons, not for personal greed. I live very modestly. I drive a Hyundai. I can afford a Rolls Royce. Uh, I can afford anything I want, but there's nothing that I want. I'm married to the same woman for 59 years. We met in our sophomore year at Hunter College in the Bronx, and we got married. We graduated in 1964. We both have a similar philosophy that material possessions brings with it as much aggravation as pleasure, so where less is more. And I figured out many years ago there's four things you could do with money. Not to lecture, but this is my view. The first thing you do with money is spend it on yourself. Buy cars, homes, planes. Now the new rage is sports teams. I'm not particularly interested in sports, and I'm not interested in material possessions. I'm a less is more kind of guy. I think material possessions brings with it aggravation as much as pleasure. In fact, I have two homes, one in New Jersey, one down here in Florida. I'm a Florida resident. I would like to sell my home in New Jersey. My wife won't let me. She's very, very resistant to change.
It's roots. You guys have roots. You can't just, I get it.
I don't know. We have a lot of friends in Florida, and I like the climate down here. I like the lifestyle better.
Yeah.
Second thing you do with money, give it to your children. If you have a lot of money, giving your kids all your money is a mistake. You deprive them of self-achievement. I have two boys that are very achieved. One graduated Stanford Phi Beta. He has an MBA from Wharton, a very successful money manager. His brother has a PhD in environmental sciences. He's a scientist. So I don't want to give all my money to my kids. I gave them enough to help them out, but I didn't give them all my money. Third thing you do with money, give it to the government, but only a fool gives the government money. You don't have to. You pay your taxes, but you don't volunteer to pay more. And the fourth thing you do with money is recycle back in society and try to make the world a better place. That's what I've chosen to do with my resources. So I work very hard, but I give the money away, and I enjoy giving it away, and I enjoy making it. I enjoy making it for two reasons. One, one of my heroes in life is Ken Langone, who I consider one of the finest human beings I've ever met. And my only envy of Ken is he has a lot more money than me to give away. But, he's just a real gentleman. And we both have similar roots. His father was a plumber in Long Island. My dad was a plumber in the Bronx.
That's amazing. And you both love hospital systems because you're both very involved in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, well, healthcare, and he's done a lot. He's got, big numbers. He gave $300 million to NYU, then he gave another $100 million to create a free medical education, which was very much needed.
Yeah, that was interesting. I guess there's a college. I guess her name was Mrs. Gottesman. Just gave $1 billion away for
his widow.
Yeah, that was an inspirational moment. I'll tell you. So you've been in this very long. You're still doing it.
Well, now I do it I tell everybody I'm like Hyman Roth in Godfather 2. Right before they shot him at the airport, he said, "I'm a retired executive living on a pension." So I tell everybody I'm a retired money manager living on investment income. The bad news is I no longer have the big income anymore that I used to have. So I gave that up. The good news, I have no pressure. Because if I make money in the market or I lose money, it's my own money. If you're managing other people's money, there's a lot of pressure on you to perform and deliver good results.
No, I get it, but you still have to. How did you keep up the learning part for the young people? Like, you don't have a million people around you giving you information. You do it. You're a very self-sustaining guy.
I read a lot, and I have common sense. And like I said, I read a lot, and I talk to a lot of people that are smarter than me. I try to synthesize what I learn. I have two analysts working with me. They feed me ideas, and I review their thinking, and they propose, and I dispose.
Besides Ken Langone, like who would you say were key mentors, people that pushed, made you feel like you could do it in a different way? I feel I've had those in my life.
And John Weinberg and the whole Goldman Sachs culture of giving back and generosity. Cy Lewis at Bear Stearns, Bob Mnuchin, who ran trading at Goldman. I learned a lot from him about how markets work. But, I was just very fortunate to be surrounded by high quality, good people.
And with your giving back, do you like mentoring now as well, or is it?
I spend a lot of time with youngsters giving talks at colleges, and I share my whole learning process with them. In fact, hold on one second. I give them a handout where I tell them some of the lessons I've learned in life, and I'll share it with your audience.
Yeah, share them, please.
I told them that every time I interviewed somebody when I was in business, no longer in business, I told them about the parable of the lion and the gazelle. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up. It knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle who will starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you were a lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you better be running. So why do I talk about that being in the money management business? Well, we charge about 1.5%, 20% of the profits. There are 10,000 quality mutual funds that will manage your money for 1% or less. So if you're going to charge your people, your clients a premium fee, you have to deliver a premium performance. I tell them the gazelle and the lion story. And then the second, I tell them what Andrew Carnegie said in 1900, I wish to have as my epitaph, here lies a man. I edited him a little bit, but I say a man or a woman. Back in 1900, women were not part of the labor force. Here lies a man or woman who wise enough to bring into his service men or women who knew more than he. Surround yourself with smart people, share the bounty equitably and fairly, and don't worry about people being stronger than you. You want people stronger than you. Then I talk a bit about integrity. So this is Reverend Billy Graham's words. When wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost. When character is lost, all is lost. Reverend Billy Graham. Okay. Then other things I tell them. I said, I have real life stories of this. Okay. The first test of a gentleman is respect for those who can be of no possible value to him. Many, many years ago, I'll mention his name favorably. Ken Langone, a deceased Goldman Sachs salesman, and myself took out a money manager for dinner. The purpose of the dinner was Ken was going to lay in the money manager's lap a new account. When Ken saw how the money manager treated the waiter, he never brought the subject up. Because, Ken is a guy that treats people above and below him the same way, and he's just a real gentleman. And the second variation of that is no matter how educated, talented, rich, or cool you believe you are, how you treat people ultimately tells all. So, I'm an advocate of treating people the same way above and below you and just be nice. I don't even know who the hell you are. And I'm doing this webcast.
Listen, I met you through a friend, and my friend said, Lee just wants to help people, so he's going to do it, and you don't even know me. And I appreciate that. And hopefully I'm going to get to know you when I come visit Kenny and come down. You forgot one that I think you say from Kenny Rogers, the gambler. You got to know when to hold them and then when to fold them.
Yeah, I folded because, the SEC created a problem with my business. They lost the case. I didn't do anything wrong. But, the institutions, they're fire, aim, ready. So I lost a lot of institutional money, and more of the money I was managing was our own money. And basically, I decided it wasn't worth the candle to put up with all the crap that you have to put up with, registration, etc. And I gave back the money and just resorted to managing my own money. So I say I want to make money for two reasons. One is I'm arrogant like everybody else. I want to be right. So if I'm losing money in the market, that means I got it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong. And number two, I like to give away more money. My only envy that we were starting down the Ken Langone path. I never finished the thought. My only envy of Ken Langone is he has not much money to give away, and he will give it away. Other things I tell the kids, Aristotle 3,000 years ago said, tolerance and apathy are the last virtues of a society. Be engaged, don't be a bump on a log, speak out. And a similar theme, Martin Luther King Jr. said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So I preach engagement and involvement. I have 3 grandkids. One is very much into helping others, and she posed the questions that Rabbi Hillel asked. Okay, and the questions are: if I'm not for myself, then who will be for me? If I'm not for others, then who am I? If not now, when? Those are the questions that Rabbi Hillel asked, and my granddaughter Courtney answered the questions. So if you're not for others, no one will be for you. if you are for others, and others will be for you. You will show others how to be for more than themselves. They will therefore be for you. The time is always now. It's now or never.
I love that.
Yeah, that's Courtney Cooperman. Now,
That's a good one. That's the best one.
yeah, well, there are others. Henry Ford, Warren Buffett, say the same thing. Henry Ford says the best way to make money in a business is not to think too much about making it. So I went to Goldman for less money, and
Well, you went with your gut. I mean, I think,
intuition part of the
it's
statement.
intuition because, and most of the time, even the intuitions, it's in the right direction, but it's not always completely right either. You learn as you go along, and you got to be willing to make a wrong move to make a right move, I think.
Pablo Picasso, attributed to him, said the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. So I found my gift. I was able to extract profits in the market. It was a good business. I take those profits and returns, and I recycle back into society. And so I'm living up to what Pablo Picasso observed.
And you're doing a lot of it. I mean,
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've been very fortunate. I went to college for $24 a semester. I met my wife for 59 years in our sophomore year. It's the City University of New York. I think right now the tuition is about $6,000 a year, which is a lot of money for these young kids.
totally.
So, we have the Cooperman College Scholars Fund in Newark, and then I have given a lot of money to Hunter College to create financial aid. And then I have a Dresses for Success program where these kids are getting their college degrees. We give them some money to be properly dressed when they go out and interview for a job.
I think it's so cool, right? Because like all these little things, dress for success. We can give in so many ways that are necessary. It's not just always a big thing. It's just finding how you can help someone one person at a time and scale that, but with things that people don't realize are necessary.
Yeah, 25 years ago, I couldn't even spell the word philanthropist, let alone be one. Now everybody says I'm a philanthropist. I'm just doing what I think is right.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Listen, it feels good.
12 years ago, I had dinner with Warren Buffett and Bill Gates on the Giving Pledge. And I said to Warren, if you're talking to wealthy people, asking for half is not asking for enough, nor is the request original. In 1900, Andrew Carnegie said, who dies rich dies disgraced. In 1930, Sir Winston Churchill said, you make a living by what you get, you make a life by what you give. In 1961, when President Kennedy was inaugurated president, he said, ask not what you can do for your country. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I said to him, I'm Jewish, and they say in the Talmud, you measure man not by what he has or what he gives. The difference between you and I'm not giving my money to Bill and Melinda Gates to give away. I'm going to give my money to those organizations and institutions that made a difference to me and my family in my lifetime. So we give a lot within the community, and we give a lot to education, and we give a lot to healthcare.
Do you have like a photographic memory for quotes? I've never heard anyone be able to riff off these quotes.
It's not the first podcast I've done.
Well, listen, it seems like you've been practicing because, like, I love quotes myself, but I can't remember. I mean, you're remembering the year they were even like put on the market. It's amazing.
Well, I wrote that letter to Warren Buffett, and I've used it on a few occasions. Look, we have real problems in the country, and we have to all pull together.
And what do you like with investing now? Like again, you've lived through way more than me. My grandmother was born in 1905. I look back at what she had
in 1908.
What's that?
My father was born in 1908.
Yeah, so I mean, that my grandmother, and she lived till 103. So she saw everything. She saw depression.
Yeah, it's a good factoid for you. My father died at 70. My older brother I was very close with died at 85. I'm 81. And I think the statistics say if you make it past 65 and cancer doesn't get you, on average you'll make it to 85. So I got 4 years left.
No, you got more. There's innovations coming. Come on. You're always positive. Be positive.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. I'm positive about my life. I'm positive what I've done, but I'm a little concerned about the environment. I think we're heading for a financial crisis.
So what? Why? Give me your thoughts.
We're spending money like drunken sailors. Just listen to Biden's State of Union address. Not one thing about controlling expenditures. It was all about raising tax on wealthy people. We have a spending problem in this country. We're running a deficit of $2 trillion a year.
Yeah.
The debt has exploded with $34 trillion. Interest on the debt alone now is about $1 trillion. When I grew up in the business in the mid '60s, there was a phraseology, crowding out and guns and butter. We have guns and butter. We're going to experience crowding out. We're living too comfortably. Nobody knows when the shit hits the fan, but it will. And the reason I say nobody knows, in 1972, I was a partner at Goldman Sachs. And there were two very distinguished dead gentlemen that were good friends with each other. Pete Peterson, who's deceased, and Henry Fowler, who was former Secretary of the Treasury. He's also deceased. They used to run full-page ads in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. They paid the cost out of their own pocket, and they alerted the public to the evils of the budget deficit. So here we are now, 50 or 60 years later, and what is the consequence? We have the lowest interest rates in the history of the world. So it's not mattered. And one of these days it's going to matter. And when it matters, we'll have a financial crisis that will lead to a change in leadership. I caught Manchin and Romney on the TV tube about a month ago. They were talking about Simpson Bowles and the need for doing something about the budget. And they said what Simpson Bowles had was the right idea, but nothing was done about it. The problem now, 5, 6, 7 years later, is 3 times greater, and we do nothing.
Yeah, it's skyrocketed. I mean, it's out of control.
Very sad, very sad.
So okay, so you don't feel, I mean, you got to grow out of it. I mean, and a question for you, with all this new innovation and technology that's been going on the last 15 years, did you embrace that in investing, or?
I'm not a technology guy. I'm a guy that plays the business cycle. I say every recession sows the seeds for the next business recovery, and every business recovery sows the seeds for the next recession. So I'm not technology oriented, even though I have a science background. And I observed that in somebody's innovation is somebody else's obsolescence. So, in 2000, the word then was the internet, and Cisco was 300 times earnings. And then in 2001, 2002, it dropped 90% in price in Cisco. And I think the internet has lived up to what everybody expected to do. And Cisco is now still below what it was in 2000. And then you have the Nifty 50 of 1972, where J.P. Morgan and U.S. Trust ruled the roost. Their philosophy was only one type of stock, a growth stock. They don't care what they paid. They were buying growth stocks at 40, 50, 60 times earnings. OPEC raised the price of oil tenfold. We got into a recession, and those stocks collapsed. And it took a decade for some of them to recover. So I think we're in a bit of a bubble period.
Well, look at AI and like NVIDIA and all the chips. I mean,
I'm not qualified to comment on AI. Everybody seems to think it's very real. I don't know if it's revolutionary or evolutionary. I don't know. I think the world would be better off. I've tried a little bit of AI, and it's very amazing.
Yeah, well, it's like when the internet first started. You need to build use cases on top of it, right? It's not just a thing,
It'll happen. The question is, how do you spend your money? And like I said, I tend to be value-oriented. I have a heavy position in energy. They're selling at 3 times cash flow. They're yielding, 5-6%. Most of them have very little debt because you can't borrow money as an energy company. And my guess is if I buy something at 3 times cash flow yielding 6%, I'll get lucky.
What was your, moment where you felt you went in something and it just blew up, and how'd you get through it?
Everybody experiences setbacks in their investment career, and what determines your success is how you handle the setbacks. So, you got to pick yourself off the ground and, persevere.
Yeah, I agree. So what about Bitcoin?
I take the easy way out in Bitcoin. I say that if you don't understand Bitcoin, that means you're old. I'm 81. I don't understand Bitcoin. I have very nominal involvement. And I
But
think
what about gold? Like, is it a store? Like what's gold? Like, that's a store of value. You can make more of it.
around for thousands of years. Bitcoin hasn't.
Okay.
And, Charlie Munger is a smart guy, lived to 99, passed away recently. He said it was rat poison. I think Warren Buffett said he wouldn't give you 25 cents for all the Bitcoin in the world. I happen to agree with Jamie Dimon. They should outlaw it. We don't need any competition for the U.S. dollar. We have a lot of debt to sell. It's not in our interest to have a competitive currency. But it is what it is. The people that like it say that if everybody wants to put 1% of their wealth in Bitcoin, it goes up a lot. But why would they want to put 1% in Bitcoin, and why do they want to own it? What do you do with it?
Right.
I don't
But
understand.
isn't everything like sort of a belief system anyway? I mean, from products, services.
Confidence plays an important role in security valuation. But when you own shares in a stock, the company, you own a share in the brick mortar machinery that produces goods and services.
It's tangible.
Tangible, exactly.
Yeah.
And the average common stock is yielding 2%. You're not getting any yield out of Bitcoin. You're betting on somebody else buying it from you at a higher price.
So being that you had this long career and you're still working harder than you ever do, giving money away, making money, I love that. It's a good balance. Any other hobbies? Like what else do you do?
I'm a very boring guy. I used to walk a couple miles a day with my older brother. He passed away, and I developed a very severe case of arthritis, so I'm having trouble walking. In fact, I'm going to Panama on Monday for some stem cell injections.
Oh, okay. Good.
It corrects my problem. Who knows?
All right, one last question because I'm just curious. If you could have chosen anything else, would you have chosen anything? Now that you've been in the same thing for so long, is there anything else you would have done?
Probably real estate where you use other people's money, get some leverage.
Yeah. It's not always good, but rates have definitely affected our industry. But it's tangible, and you can use leverage properly. You just can't over leverage. That's the issue.
Yeah, well, everything is cyclical. I remember in the '60s where Prudential Real Estate, PRISA, the Prudential Real Estate Fund, was closed for redemptions, and then you got into a very strong run.
Yeah.
Cyclical. You got to understand capitalism. Excess returns attracts competition. I got to believe every boardroom in America, they're looking at NVIDIA's success, and we're going to wind up with overcapacity in semis. The question is whether it's a year or 2 years or 3 years away.
It's just, with all these data, like if you're going to have AI, you have to have this new data center power to compute.
Yeah, I owned Vertiv.
Oh.
Bought at $10. It's $75 today. It's up every day. All I can tell you is everybody's going to go in the data center business. Excess returns attract capacity and capital.
Yeah.
Returns drive it out.
I mean, I'm old enough to say it's my third cycle, and like these are the times, it's a reset. So some people are going to have issues, and you'll be able to find, bargains and opportunities. So
absolutely, that's the interesting thing about the business.
So I want to thank you so much, since you didn't know me and you did this, and you're always.
Well, you seem like a smart fellow with good questions, and I appreciate your time and giving me some visibility. I'm at a point in my career where I'm not worried about visibility. I like to hug a little bit, but
it's always nice to be visible. I always say it's always nice to hear other people's opinions, and so I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Hi, John Schultz here. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Looking forward to being with you soon.